Hello and welcome to another video on the Grimwood Watch Modern channel, and today I have two very nice watches here in front of us. However, they came in from a customer a bit ill. Now, one of them I've actually fixed, the Steinhardt here on my right. I've actually gone in and I've fixed the issue. However, the Glycerine Combat here still has the issue. Now, basically what the issue was, both of them had exactly the same one. They didn't wind properly. Basically, you could wind them a bit and then it would get stuck, and there was just horrible grinding noises which the customer reported. They would work on the wrist, so if you give them a shake they would tick and they would go fine, and I've checked them on my timograph, both movements are running quite well, and it was just involving the winding mechanism. Now, the Steinhardt has an ETA 2428 movement in, the Glycerine has a Sellita sw200-1 in it, which is rebranded as a GL224 by Glycerine. They did use ETAs at one point, but they switched over to the Sellitas in the more modern kind of models. But anyway, the Sellita is basically a copy of the 2824, and they basically copied the issue over from the 2824. And the issue is this gear right here, as you can see. And I've actually got a new one here for the Sellita, which I will do in a second. Now, I'm going to give you a close-up snapshot of this actual gear off my micro lens on my phone, and as you can see, it's missing a few teeth, and the reason for this is it's because it's made out of a very complex alloy called cheese alloy, which is very soft but very good on crackers. But in all seriousness, it's basically if you're a bit aggressive with winding or wind it too much, this gear actually gets damaged, and over time the teeth break off, and then you get this issue, and a few other issues can occur from the teeth falling into the movement. It's a bit of a design flaw for the ETAs and also the Sellitas. Now, the Sellita did actually try to mend this in the -1s by actually changing the teeth profile. However, this is a -1 and this has come in with the same issue, but hey-ho, we shall crack on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move the Steinhardt, which is happily ticking away there and all healthy, out of the way, and I'm going to start work on this Sellita sw200. So if you give us a sec, I'm going to cover my hands up because this is a client watch, and I always wear protection with client watches to stop my greasy hands getting on anything, and I'll show you the exact process of what you do when you're changing one of these actually out, and also what you should do to try and actually prevent this happening in the first place. So if you give us 2 seconds, I'll be right back. And I'm back. I'm all scrubbed up and ready to delve into this watch. And in all honesty, I do rate the ETA 2824 movements and all the copies that people or companies have done. They are a good little movement. However, they do have this issue of basically having very poor winding mechanisms where this issue occurs. Now, like I say, this will be my 5th watch I've actually come across in my time of doing all these that actually has had this issue, and I've actually repaired. This is actually my first Sellita sw200 movement I've had to do this on, but like I say, in all honesty, the movement itself is basically identical to the 2824. Just to bear in mind, this movement, the actual gear in here, is not a direct replacement between the two, so you can't get a ETA 2824 gear and put it in, it just doesn't work. Now, I can actually see straight off the bat here, and I will take a picture of it now on my phone, of the gear, and it's missing quite a few teeth off the top here, as you can see, so this has definitely happened to this movement as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly just take a picture of this, so I've got a micro of it, and then we'll crack on and get the automatic winding mechanism off. So first things first, we're going to actually, I'll just move my torch up there, we can actually see the movement, what's going on. I'm going to have to remove the actual top automatic wind assembly, which to be honest is quite easily done. It's just held in by 2 screws. It does look like it's held in by a 3rd down here, but this is actually just holding in your winding gear off your stem, so that one doesn't need to be touched. So we'll just crack on, get in and get these 2 screws undone. I shall also need to drag in my little helpful pot where I just stick all the stuff in, because one thing you have to be very, very careful of is you've got the balance sitting there ticking away because it's being wound up. Ideally you would do this when the movement was wound down, but obviously I haven't been that sensible to do that, but here, it doesn't really matter. So there's one screw out, and Let's try and get this one out here. Now these screws can be quite tight in as well to start with, especially if they haven't been removed. And there we go. It's actually quite clean inside this one. The Steinhardt looked like it already had been opened up at some point in its life, so it did have a few fingerprints on the inside of the said movement. There's 2 screws out there, right. So with those 2 screws out, I should now be able to remove the actual automatic winding. Now, there is a few places you can go and actually put your screwdriver to try and level it, or to actually lever up the assembly. You just have to be very careful not to actually touch any other part of the mechanism just to do it. And there we go, it's actually just popped off there very nicely indeed. So if I just take my little tweezers, get it underneath the mechanism, and that comes off as a wanna. Put that in there for later. And there we have the movement without the automatic winding mechanism on top, and it kind of makes things a lot clearer. Obviously we've got the balance down there at the bottom of the watch, and then we obviously have the main winding gear that comes off the stem, and then the ratchet gear here, which is causing us all this issue. Now I'm just going to pop a few pictures up of this mechanism in close up here, and as you can see it is missing a few teeth, quite a few actually, and you can also see the actual teeth pitch in between the winding gear and the actual ratchet gear are different, and they don't actually match into each other's teeth exactly. It actually, the main winding gear goes into every other tooth of the ratchet gear. However, the automatic winding gear goes in every tooth of the ratchet gear. So this is why on some of the times the automatic winding will still work, because you might have just missed one tooth and this one isn't actually picking it up sometimes, but the automatic winding, because it's got a finer pitch, actually just basically goes, I don't really mind missing one tooth, I'll just go on to the next one and pick it up. But the other issue is, as soon as you start grating these teeth off, these teeth start to drop back down into the movement, which is where the issue is. And that's where you start having kind of problems of, you know, bits of teeth getting into your mainspring, getting into the gear train and so on and so forth. So it is quite vital that as soon as you pick this up, you stop using the watch, because you could break this movement to the point where it's basically unserviceable, because it's surprising how the little bits can actually break some big major bits inside your watch movement. So with this done, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to quickly just do a check over to see if I can find any little bits in this case. I'm hoping I'm not going to, but we shall see. A lot of the teeth look like they've just been bent back, to be honest, but we'll double check anyway, just peace of mind. And if you give us a couple of minutes, I won't bore you with that process. I'll just quickly have a look and then I'll crack on and get this gear removed. So that's it. I've basically had a thorough look over the movement. I've found one tiniest bit of debris off this actual gear, and it was actually just down here next to where the mainspring is. Other than that, I can't find anything else, so I'm happy enough that there's no other bits of metallic material in this that could cause any problem in the future. So with that all done, the next big thing is actually to take this wheel off. But before we do that, we're going to get the new one out of the case. Now with the Sellita sw200s, Sellita actually made 2 versions of this movement. They made the 200 and the 200-1, and the 200-1 was actually a kind of modification to try and fix this issue by basically changing the profile on the main tooth gear, this one here, the ratchet gear. However, this here is a 200-1 movement. I know Glycerine use these ones, so the issue is still apparent on this model as well. But just bear in mind, when you do, if you've got one of the older SW200s, you can actually modify it by changing a couple more gears in the automatic movement, the automatic mechanism, and also this gear here to the new profile, and that supposedly makes it a bit harder wearing. But like I say, this one's still got issues. So with that, I'm just going to prepare my new gear here. So I'll just get the bag open, ready to get that out, and then we'll take off the old knackered one right now. So if you give us a second, I shall do that now. There we go. The other thing is this: if you've got steady hands and you've got the tools, this is not it's not a hard job to do. That part on the right there, which is on both the ETA movement and also the SW200-1 movement, the part number is 415, so 415 if you're ever looking for this part to change it out. And there we go, there's another gear right there. And what I'll do is I'll show you that one in a close-up right now. So at this moment in time, as you can see there, we've basically got everything off the movement. And I've just noticed it's actually wound all the way down now, which is quite fun, just at the right time. So now with that all done, I can now get my new ratchet wheel and stick it on here and hopefully put it all back together and jobs are good. And so if you give us 2 seconds, I shall go and grab my new part right here. And we shall try, so if my head's in the way of the camera, but I have to try and get it on here. And the other thing is just make sure it's actually meshing up with that gear. And once it's done that, we then grab the screw and try and line everything back up. He says try and get the screw. Problem is with wearing full gloves, your hands sweat like a pig, so I'm getting quite warm in these, but it means you can literally handle anything on the watch and you don't have to worry about getting any grubby oils off your hands onto it. And then once you've done that, just give it a bit of a nip. The other interesting thing is, if you can have a look, I'll just try and move my hand out the way. As this works off the automatic winding, this gear down here actually moves out the way, and that's another thing. This gear actually skips past teeth on this one, so it has to be quite hard wearing, even when you're wearing it on the automatic function. But like I say, the advice is when your watch is totally dead on power with one of these movements, is to basically just give it the minimum amount of winds to get it going. Once it's going, just stick it on the wrist and let your own body movement and the movement of the wrist charge the watch up, and then you're less likely to get this issue. However, I can't guarantee you won't get the issue because this gear is still in contact, but the main automatic winding gears are the same kind of pitch profile as the ratchet gear, whereas the winding gear isn't, and I think that's one of the issues of this happening. There's a lot of force going on to a single kind of tooth instead of a couple at the same time. So with that all done, what I'm going to do now beforehand is I'm going to see if the winding mechanism actually works now. And actually, to be honest, before I do that, I'm going to put a dab of oil here. If you just give us a second, I've got my little oilers and a little pot of watch oil. So just dab that in there, and then just a little bit on the teeth. Just a little bit. There we go. That'll do. And that's just the tiniest ever bit. You don't need much on these. It spreads around. But as we can see there, we've got full winding, and it winds absolutely perfectly. So more than happy with that. And it's as easy as that now. In all honesty, I've actually gone out, just out of curiosity, and gone to a few watch repairers to see if they would fix that. My local one down the street, who says he does everything, basically just does batteries and he won't touch an automatic with a barge pull, so he refused to quote. There was one in a local shopping centre, one of these main watch repair brands, and they quoted me £250 including the part. The part itself will cost you a £5. So in all honesty, 250 quid to do this, and like I say, I'm doing it live now in front of you, and it doesn't take that long whatsoever. So next bit is matching this up to the movement. Now the way I do this is the hole that we actually, this one came in here where this actual winding tooth winding gear is, that's where I actually match it up, and then once I've got it like that, I just kind of try and line it up as best I can. That's pretty much there. And then try and get these little blooming screws out of the box. And put that into its hole. There we go. The other good thing is always use brass tweezers. They don't get magnetised and they don't pick up your screws. It's also bad having a magnetised instrument next to your watch anyway, because obviously they are affected by magnetism, so it's always good to have parts that don't get magnetised. Obviously my screwdrivers aren't, these are actually one of the cheaper set of jeweller's screwdrivers you can get, but they've done me, I'm not going to complain. So with them 2 screws in, so I'm just going to lightly do this. Now obviously as you do this, just kind of make sure you're engaging the gear, so just before you tighten it down, just rotate your rotor and just see if it's actually doing anything. And as I heard there, the actual main, yeah, that's it. You can feel it once it's actually engaged. There we go. And that there is now one healthy SW200-1 movement ticking away in a Glycerine combat sub. Very easy fix if you've got the tools, and like I say, it's not that expensive. It's took me, what, maybe 25 minutes to do this whole thing. Obviously I've got to pressure test it now, but that's in all honesty separate to this job. But yeah, that's basically as easy as that. But the movements themselves do have an inherent flaw, and that is it. And this is why a lot of people are a bit kind of cautious of winding the watches, and people go, oh, it's bad to wind your watches, it's not good. Now, in all honesty, with like me NH200 movement watches, I always wind them. I literally wind them all the way up, and I've never had an issue of something like this. Now, my worry is with this movement is my Breitling Steelfish, the Super Ocean, actually has a derivative of this by, obviously Breitling, it's rebranded, and I'm now very reluctant to wind that up as much as I did normally since I've been made aware of this issue. And I think for such a high-class movement, because obviously you do get different grades, don't get me wrong, but it's a Swiss-made movement by ETA, and I think it's an issue that should really be picked up, because like I say, this is in a matter of, let's say, 6 months, I've had 5 of these through my hands, and it's an ongoing issue. The only reason I've had it in such a short time period is people are now recognising I'm doing this fix. But what I'm now advising the customer to do is, once he gets these 2 watches back, wind them the minimum amount of time to get the hand ticking, and then wear it on the wrist and just let your own body kind of charge it up. And then if you need to adjust the time, once it's fully charged, undo the crown, do the time, put it back on, job's good. And then hopefully these watches will last a lot longer before they need to be stripped yet again. So with that all out of the way, I'm going to leave this video here, and I hope it's helped you kind of out. And if you have this problem, you can now go ahead and do it yourself, or even if you can't, you know what's involved, so you don't get ripped off price wise. If you have liked this video, please subscribe, hit that bell icon for future notifications of videos, and obviously like this video. And as always, keep safe, and I will see you soon.